Hello there. Thank you for joining me tonight. This is Fate Mag Radio, and I am Kat Hobson, your host. I am so excited because I love getting friends on here with me. And this is a special occasion because he is staying up into his wee hours from Scotland. And this is my friend Gregor Stewart. He's an author, he is known as a haunted explorer. He is one of the best paranormal investigators I've ever been around, and he's part of the Haunted Scotland, um, paranor- Scottish Paranormal Haunted Scotland, and he's just a dear man. Greg, I'm so glad that you're here tonight.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. It's lovely to chat with you again.
Well, I think that things happen the way they're supposed to, and so not only have we tried for a couple of weeks to get this done,
Yeah.
but we are, this is our second take. I'm so excited. So it's things work out the way they're supposed to every time.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, I tell people all the time that you are the haunted explorer. And that's probably one of the most apt descriptions that I could give a friend is that one for you.
Yeah, it's
You're
it's a it's a kind of a name I came up with a lot of years ago now. It was actually the name of the first book that I wrote when I was first dipping my toe into writing about ghost stories. Um, it was covering the lesser known locations in Scotland and my personal experience being there. You get a lot of books that will tell you about the ghost story associated to a place,
mhm.
but I wanted to go a little bit deeper and actually, add how I felt when I visited, rather than just write. I wanted to visit each location, get a take on it myself, and just offer my thoughts. So that's where I was exploring these haunted locations. So that's where it came about.
What was your first one?
The first book was
Not the
Scotland's
first
Hidden
book.
Hauntings.
Not the first book.
Oh, the first
Your
book, yeah, was
first haunted exploration.
oh, we are going way, way back to when I was a wee boy.
Yes.
It would be St Andrew's Cathedral.
Yes.
I grew up on tales about St Andrews, so I would go wandering around about the cathedral early evening into the night, just in the hope that I would see something. I didn't have any real knowledge about investigating at that time. It was more just soaking up the atmosphere, soaking up the
Mhm.
energy, and just hoping that you may encounter something.
Did you?
I did, yes. I saw a figure move at one point. The difficulty is the cathedral was, now it's closed at night time. At that time, it was open during the night time. So although I saw a fleeting glimpse of what to me looked like a white figure, um, I can't 100% rule out it wasn't just somebody else in the cathedral at that time, although I never saw anybody else move at any other point in the time I was there. So um, I'm fairly confident it was something,
Right.
but I can't categorically say it was.
You know, that to me is fascinating because that place still holds your heart.
Yes, yep, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's my hometown. I was, as I say, I was brought up in the stories about the ghosts. It's where this inquisitive mind probably started, because people will always tell you a ghost story. If you ask why, you know, they tell you the cathedral's haunted, but you ask why, they don't know. They're just
Yeah.
retelling a story that's been passed down from generation to generation to generation. But I want to know why. What happened? Um, who haunts it? Why are they still there? And this is where you quite often find, once you do dig into the history of these locations, what actually happened there is far more interesting than the story that gets handed down. And you find lots of other bits that maybe tie into other areas of the town that are also reputedly haunted, and you start being able to piece things together. I'm always a great one for a spirit or a ghost, whatever you want to call them, doesn't just fly around in there and think, oh, I think I'll just pop down there for a couple of nights. There's a reason. There has to be a reason why that energy is connected to that location. And it's finding that answer. So I always try to find the earliest possible writings about haunting as well. As they get handed down through generations, they tend to get adapted to suit the situation at the time. So I always feel if you go right back to the very start, when did the haunting first start to be reported? And that's the closest you'll get to the reality of what's going on.
Well, one of the things that struck me the first time I was in Scotland, it was your passion for your country. It's just, and almost everyone that I met there, they're so proud to be a Scot.
Yeah. I think we are a very, very proud nation. I don't think there's any doubt in that.
Not at all. And my husband, who is not a traveler per se, is certainly not outside of the U.S. right now, was stunned when I said, I'm going back, just so you know. And he was like, well, why are you going back? I said, because of the circumstance of my first trip, I didn't get to see and experience the things I was supposed to. And I want to see them and feel them. And he was like, well, you can't really argue with that. Right. So when I kept adding an extra week here or there, he started going like, you're coming back, right? I was like, I'm coming back. I will always come back to you. So, and I do, but it was so funny because the difference in the first trip, I fell in love, right? Edinburgh is probably one of my favorite cities I've ever seen. And I have traveled in the US a pretty good bit. But it struck me as being what the older parts of New York should be like, but aren't. Because
there's not many cities you can walk around with a huge castle sitting right there in the middle, looking down over you.
Wander through. I mean, it's so safe.
Yes, yeah.
Scotland is a very safe country. I know that there's going to be a few rogues everywhere that just
every country has them. Yeah, I mean we have our problems here in Scotland, just like everywhere else has. But it's for me, it's I mean it feels safe. Almost anywhere you go, you feel safe, and people will always welcome you.
Yes.
No matter where you're from, fellow Scots will welcome fellow Scots if you're visiting their area.
Yes.
And as you touched on earlier about us being a proud nation, that's probably why we love showing people around our country, and talking about our history and our heritage and things like that. So I always think that if somebody's going to make the effort to come and visit your country, the least you can do is welcome them and show them around, tell them what you know that they may be interested in. Keep it relevant, obviously.
I'm like that here, though. If I meet somebody that's just either they have just immigrated here, or they're on holiday, then I'm like, what do you like?
Yeah, exactly.
What would you like to see?
Yeah, and that for me is part of the important thing is to actually ask the person what is it that you want to see, what you're interested in. There's no point in me going on about something that they just have no interest in. Take time to get to know the person first, and then share what you can with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do that very well.
Thank you.
So, well, and we had talked about your first book, you know, The Haunted Explorer, and you've got so many different ones. What,
Yeah, I mean,
23?
us
23 books now?
20, I think it's the 23rd one. I'm just finishing off just
Yeah.
now. I initially started writing ghost stories, but as I mentioned earlier, when you're digging into the history for what could be the reason why a certain location is haunted, you find out so much more about that area, the town, the people, etc. And to me, they were stories that were too good not to be shared. So I started writing more local history. It was with Amberley Publishing, I've just finished another book for them. It's called The Secret Range. So they explore local towns, local cities, but it's secret because it's the forgotten or the hidden
Yes.
stories from the town that shaped the town. So you get to explore lots of things that are maybe the darker side of history that people don't talk about as much. So it's quite interesting for me. And say you find all these wee local tales that are just brilliant. You really want to keep alive.
Well, you know, we had talked before about St. Andrews, and one of the things that I have not gotten to do in St. Andrews yet, which is another reason I have to come back in the dead of summer, is because the pool under the castle.
Yes.
You know, it's literally a pool.
Yes, it's a swimming pool.
Yes,
St
built in
Andrews
the
has,
sea.
there's about 2 or 3 of them around the town. One's now the Sea Life Centre, so you don't want to swim in there because it's full
No,
of seals. Um, but
and
yeah,
they're aggressive, or can be.
there's several just pools,
Hmm.
as you say, literally built into the sea. So the water is changed naturally twice a day with the tides coming in and going out. You know,
Yes.
it's and growing up, that was where we all used to go as kids. You know, we would go down there, especially the Castle Sands. It's a small beach,
Hmm.
small pool, so your parents could sit on the sand having their picnic. We as
Yes.
kids could be climbing the rocks and swimming in the pool quite safely. They knew that we couldn't go too far. Yeah, it was a lovely place to grow up.
You know, we have beaches here in my state, and I am constantly on them when I can be. And I think that it was such a brilliant thing to see because we're open water. We don't have barriers like that. And that was so brilliant to do
Yeah,
that
yeah. But if
because
I
we
don't
have
know
a
if you
lot of
went further
riptides and
around,
stuff.
if you went further around to the West Sands in the town
Hmm.
where Chariots of Fire, that's probably what it's most famous for, is the
I
opening
had
scene
my
from
picture
Chariots
taken
of Fire
there
film.
running.
Yeah, you know that's much more going out into open water.
Hmm.
Straight
That
out
looked
to
like
North
my
Sea.
beach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's out to North Sea. That's when you
Yeah.
went down there as kids. That was a bit different because you'd go swimming, you'd end up half a mile up the beach when you came back out, and then you had to find your parents on the beach someplace, which was a
Yeah.
different experience altogether.
I imagine so. But you know, that's what we are. My beach is on the Gulf of Mexico. It's not the Atlantic side. And I do think that water is a little bit more interesting sometimes.
Yeah, I openly admit there's very few things that scare me in this world, but the sea, the ocean, is one.
It has so
I
much
don't mind
power.
water, as in paddling, even swimming depth. But once you get out into deep water, no, that's not
Well,
something I enjoy.
I would not intentionally be in deep water like that, but I am going to pop a little peppermint here. So, for those that don't know, I am overcoming something, but there's going to be crinkling and stuff involved if I can even get it open. Yeah, people over here don't know that if I say I can't get this bloody thing open, that I'm cussing. So, you know, but the deep water, I've been in the Pacific, Ocean and the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. I've also been in the Caribbean and I've been in the North Sea.
Yep.
But I just don't, I don't do deep water swimming.
No.
I stay in close because we have such an issue with sharks here. And I'm sure that y'all have tremendous sharks that you kind of have to respect that.
Yeah, I mean,
I
we're
don't want to be
fortunate in
lynched.
that we have basking sharks, but we don't have anything that would eat you.
Oh, okay.
The basking sharks will, on very, very rare occasions, accidentally swallow you or take
Are
you
they
in the mouth.
big?
Oh, huge, yeah.
Oh, so they would actually swallow you.
Yeah. I mean, they swim with their mouth open. They eat plankton. They're not meat eaters at all,
Oh,
but
okay.
they
So they're
constantly swim with their,
filtering?
yes, their mouth's wide
Okay.
open. So if you're unfortunate, and there's been very few occasions, but you may get drawn into the mouth, but they'll very quickly spit you back out because you're just a blockage to them.
Well, I would think that we would not be a tasty morsel to them.
No, definitely
Unless you've been in the
not.
salt water long enough that you're a fish.
You're just a blockage, so they need to get rid of you so they can continue filtering the plankton. But that's the worst we get, fortunately. But
That would not be freaky at all, right?
no, not in the slightest.
Oh my God.
But again, I just relate back to the fact that there is so little known about the ocean.
Yes.
Basking sharks are the worst that we've got that we know about. What else is out there still to be discovered?
Yes.
That's a different question. And that's not what I want to find out.
I don't want to be the guinea pig.
No.
Right? So I feel you on that. Well, I will say that popping my Legion's cough drop here, but it's what every talk show host wants, is to have a cough drop in her mouth. But when you started with your explorations, did you actually live in St. Andrews?
No, I moved out the town when I got married many years ago. St Andrews is a town that's quite prohibitively expensive, unfortunately, to live in. So we moved out of the town with the full intentions that as our careers progress, we would move back. But unfortunately, our salaries never ever kept up with the increase in property value in St Andrews. It's up there. I've spoken to Rick a few times, and it's up there to similar prices that he would pay in Hollywood areas. So yeah,
Oh my
it can
gosh.
be very expensive to live there.
Well, to be honest, I did love the walkability of it. But when we were in Roslyn in the village, everything there was walkable too.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I always look at prices in St Andrews, and if you move 5 miles outside the town,
Mm-hmm.
if you go in a radius of about 5 miles away, you will be able to pick up the same house for considerably cheaper.
Yes. Well, that's kind of any metro area, although St. Andrews is not a metropolitan area, but it is a university town.
It is, yes, a university town and a cathedral city,
mm-hmm.
as they sometimes refer to it.
That's a good descriptive term.
Yeah, I mean, it's people generally classify any town that's got a cathedral to be a city, but it's a cathedral city is the correct term to use. It's debatable in St Andrews because it's the cathedral's not in use anymore, obviously. It's a ruined tourist attraction, as you know, if you visited it. But yes, it's still called by many as a cathedral city.
Well, I'm so sorry, but I am fighting. I'm fighting so hard.
Don't worry about it.
But one of the things that really got me was, the first time we ever went through there. I'm familiar with the Meridian line. Well,
yes,
in St. Andrews is the Gregorian line.
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, Gregor, it's your line.
Yeah, I wish. No, it was a scientist and a mathematician at St Andrews University who first set a meridian line. And he also was the first to invent the refractive telescope. Predated Sir Isaac Newton by about 5 years, but he
I didn't know
didn't take the credit. He just sat back and let Sir Isaac take the credit for his version of it. The original telescope you can see it in the University Museum. It's still there. So you can go in and see it.
I just fell in love with that whole city. And a lot of that had to do with your love for that city.
Thank you.
Because the first time, we were on that Baton Death March through St. Andrews that day, but you really did such a good job of just absolutely sharing why that was such an important and lovely place.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rushed tour, that one, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, it's partly the frustration for situations like that, because you don't want to start telling too much about the information until everyone's there, because you want everyone to hear about it and enjoy and learn about where they are. So yeah, there's probably just too many people and too pushed for that one. We know the situation for that one, so I was just so grateful that you came back to then do it again.
There was no way I wasn't coming back. We knew we were coming back before we ever left. So
excellent. It means a lot.
It was, and one of the things that really made us decide to do that was the fact that we didn't get to spend enough time with you guys. And I had heard so much about y'all. You took the time out of your lives to come on with me on Paranormal Experience. Y'all went to your office and y'all stayed up till the wee hours to do that show. And I was so blown away by how wonderful and kind and intelligent the information was. It wasn't any kind of like woo kind of thing. It was like scientists were researching, we're trying to find this information, and this is what we're doing. I already knew you were like that. And even when y'all were so exhausted.
As researchers and investigators, we're not storytellers.
Yes,
we will tell the story of what's allegedly, what activity happens there, etc. But yeah, I mean, we go quite deep into it, in the historical side particularly.
Yes.
To find out the who, why, whats, as I call it. Who haunts it, why they haunt it, and what happened to make them stay there. Whether in visitation or whether they're always there. There's got to be a reason for all of it.
Well, and one of you're so patient with us, because I know that some of us get distracted easily, right?
We get distracted when we're visiting other places as well. So, and even different place in Scotland, we get distracted. So, we 100% understand that. We visit other countries, and
it's so different.
We're exactly the same.
It's so different. And for us, the knowledge base that you brought was all of you as a team. Okay.
Yep.
But the knowledge base that y'all bring to the equipment, to the types and styles of hauntings, to knowing the history of locations that you're going to, because you do need to know. I like to go into places with my skill sets sometimes I like to go in blind, as I call it.
Yeah.
But there are times that I'll be doing that and I'll be getting something and I'm like, oh, well, there's no way this couldn't possibly apply to this location. And I'll hold back, and then later I'll be talking to somebody and they're like, oh, well, yeah, that happens there all the time. It's because, and I'm like, I should have said something. So now I've gotten to where I do say something, and There
Yeah,
you go.
whenever we are doing we host quite a lot of public events where members of the public come along to investigate with us, and we always say that if you see, feel, hear anything, say it. It doesn't matter how daft it may feel at the time, because it may click into some relevance.
Mhm.
And as you know, when you're in an investigation and you've only got a limited amount of time there,
Yeah.
If there is something coming through, some communication or sensation or anything, you want to follow that line of inquiry there and then. You don't want to wait half an hour for somebody to then tell you to break, and
Yeah.
then you're too late. You've lost that connection.
Well, when you were at Mingus, and that wasn't your first time,
No,
that
no, we've been going there many times.
where the sundial sits in front of the window,
Yes.
that that place, that area of Mingus, to me felt like there was somebody standing there with me looking out the windows.
Yeah,
And
it's a fairly common occurrence up there for people to see a lady standing staring out a couple of the windows. She's seen that. When we were up there, when they were filming Spooked Scotland,
Mhm.
we had quite a surreal experience, which continued on to our latest event there. When Ryan and the rest of the team were away filming the for the episode. I was sitting down in the coffee lounge, just waiting for them to finish. It's the old Victorian wing of the castle, part of the old kitchen that they now use as a tea room. So I was sitting there just quietly waiting for them to finish filming and come back down. As I sat there, just suddenly heard a woman go, "Well, hello there." Oh, wait a minute. Did you hear that? Yeah. Yeah. But there's no women in the castle, full stop. It wasn't that there's no women in that room, there's no women in the castle, full stop. And then about 5 minutes later, we heard footsteps above us, and there's a large room above us that's used for weddings and things like that. And we heard somebody walking back and forwards up there, and we thought, oh, they must be filming. That's how
Right.
loud it was, and we just assumed that they'd moved to start filming there. And then when the camera crew came back in, coming down to get a cup of coffee, we said, "Oh, did you get anything upstairs?" And I said, "We've not been upstairs. We've been in the castle, up the tower." That's a Victorian wing, so it's a completely separate wing from the main castle tower.
Yes.
So it's not a case that sound was travelling. They were in almost a separate building, connected by one door, several floors up, and 2-meter thick stone walls. But we heard footsteps on the wooden floor above us, clear
Was
as
that
day.
where the caretaker lives, or is that where the bookshop
He
is?
lives in a private property to the rear.
Yeah.
But we asked him as well, and he hadn't been in the castle either.
Because that's something that
time.
I was curious about too, because like if you're in the shop and you're coming down the corridor,
Yes, yep,
then you start up into the tower.
yeah.
And it was coming out of the shop and coming down through there that I was getting stuff too.
That's
And
the darker area of the castle. That's where the soldiers were hung, as in hung on hooks, not hung by their neck, and killed. According to the story, there's a couple of variations about it, about exactly why they were hung, but they were allegedly hung on hooks in there, stabbed to death multiple times, and then their bodies were cut up and fed to the pigs to avoid them ever having any form of burial.
Wow.
And that area that's where you get the darker energy, definitely.
Well, it definitely felt dark. Yeah.
The shop area, they now think the shop area is possibly the area that it happened. Prior to that, they thought it was the vaulted areas just past it, but they now think it was actually the area now used as a shop.
Well, it was very disconcerting, and that really is the only place that I felt something that made me kind of go, "Oh, this energy, no."
Yeah,
Don't want
yeah.
that.
It's a
But
very strange energy in there. The only other place I would say that's got a similar energy for different reasons is the chapel at Balgony Castle, where
yeah,
it can be very variable. Sometimes it's fine, other times you're thinking probably shouldn't be here.
yeah. And that was someplace the first time I was there, um, at Balgony, I had, yeah, we did have time in the chapel area.
Yes, yeah,
And I got a really terrific photo of Lori and Tunde. And Tunde was looking over Lori's shoulder at the SLS camera screen, and I was in front of them. But looking over Tunde's shoulder out the window, that window drew me every minute that I was in that
right,
chapel
okay,
area.
yeah,
And it felt like, because it was, you know, the chapel was pretty much its own thing. And but it felt like there was somebody or something who had died there. And I don't see as a rule, it has to be something that's really wanting to show me
yeah, yeah.
for me to see it. I didn't get anything like that. But then again, when I was in the chapel itself, in in the door, in the doorway, going into the darker side, it was that was a darker side.
Yeah.
And I was not welcome there. I mean,
Yeah, I mean
and
the spirit that we encounter in there on a fairly regular basis, he doesn't seem to be very favourable towards women
not at
um,
all.
for whatever reason. There is no historical records as to why that would be, but there's definitely something there that women, if that energy is there, women are not welcome in that area.
Is that dark? I know that when the Dark Zone was filming there, that there was some interaction with that spirit, with the woman that was there. Is he still there?
Yes, well, definitely, yes. Yeah, he makes his presence known on a regular basis. The only time that we had no activity in there was when Raymond, the former Laird of Balgony, when we first started to go to the castle, he used to come with us to sit in beside us during the investigations. And any room he was in, we got almost no interaction. And we suspect it's a respect thing
Mm-hmm.
that even the spirit energy respect his position as Laird of Balgony. So they'll step back while he's in the room. It got to
Right.
the stage that we mentioned that theory, and he started to not want to come into the room with us if it was going to stop. But equally, it's an invaluable resource to us. Stuart and Kelly, they've done the same. If they're in the room with us and we get a name coming through, they can instantly tell us, because of their knowledge of the castle is so good. They can instantly tell us who that person is, what time period they were in the castle, which lets us then relate the questioning to that particular their energy. Whereas if we didn't have that knowledge there, it would be a name that we'd then have to research later on, and then realise we, as I mentioned earlier, we missed that opportunity.
Excuse me. I'm going to need to pause just a minute.
Not a problem.
And I'm back with a new cough drop. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
The good thing is that it's not COVID. So yay. But because I was at the doctor yesterday. So I
Right,
know
yeah.
that's not it. But I live in the South in the United States, and everything is pollen
Yeah,
except for that cough
not so
drop.
good.
And I have another one. But
Right.
you know, that's one of the things that I was so surprised by when Rick McCollum first started telling me about Balgoni. I was I was pretty impressed, really, because I did not know a Laird. All right. Much less a guy who was so special and so kind and welcomed people into his home and had the same curiosity that we all have about spirits. And especially with his skills. I mean, he was so multi-talented.
Yeah, I mean, he was an incredible man. Unfortunately, Stuart's been able to carry on a lot of, Stuart's multi-skilled as well, and Stuart's got the same level of knowledge that his father had, fortunately. So um, he's able to carry that forward when we're continuing investigations. But yeah, I mean, Raymond, the previous Laird, Stuart's father, he carved all the doors within Balgony Castle. Exact replicas of other doors and other historic properties, some of them. Whereas Stuart's responsible for restoring all the stonework using traditional building methods, to bring the castle back to life. And to be totally honest, if it wasn't for them, that castle would probably be lost by now.
I could see that. And when I saw the first door, I was blown out of the water because the intricacy of his work was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then when I got up to the Great Hall, that one's just as beautiful. I mean, the man, I knew that he was a master leather carver.
Yes. Yeah.
I did not know his woodworking skills were so astounding. And yet, everything he did was brilliant.
Yeah.
When
The
we were there.
heraldry, writing, and painting as well. All the
Yes.
paintings throughout the castle are down to him as well. So yeah, very, very talented man.
Yeah. And that is somebody that I have regrets about not having been able to meet several people, but he is one of my main ones because I think I respected him so much without ever even having met him.
Yeah,
It
yeah. I
was,
mean, anyone that has met him, anyone that we've taken that this has been lucky enough to meet him,
yeah,
are really just blown away at how his passion,
yes.
for not just the castle, because he restored other buildings previously as well.
Well, he held two
Um,
lairdhips.
yeah,
So,
the passion for just history and preserving history. He always said he's only a custodian.
yeah,
The castle was there before him, and it'll be there after him. So he can only do what he could do in that short period of time. That he was the custodian. Now that custodianship has passed down to Stuart, who is equally as passionate
yeah.
about everything, and is following on that tradition to keep that castle. For it'll be there for future generations to see.
Well, my favorite thing, because Rick did not understand why we were in the museum when we were there.
Yes. Yep.
And I know that y'all knew why we were in the museum when we were there. But, until Stuart came in and was telling us, I made this with my dad. This was my dad's.
Yep.
This was from this era. This was that. We were right at his workroom.
Yes. Yep.
And, where the man created those doors and even his own casket, right?
Yes.
I
Yep.
mean, the man was astounding. And then we're sitting there and all this activity started happening. And Rick was like, wow, And I'm like, yeah, let's step this pace up there, guy.
Yeah.
And everything was going off. My camera turned off like 7 or 8 times. I think more than that, but 7 or 8 times that I know of. I had a full battery. There was
Right.
no
Yep.
reason for that camera to fail. And Mikey is filming, and he's like, And so Rick is, doing stuff. And I'm sitting there. Rick says, well, obviously, this is someone who knows how to use this equipment. And I'm like, come on, dude, come on. And I mean, because there's not a soul there did not know that the Laird would come to Rick, right? And it was so cool. I've
Yeah.
never seen that level of activity in one room.
Yeah. Well, there was a two reasons that we chose that area for you. One is obviously the connection to Raymond, but it's the museum area is full of so many artifacts as well. Potentially connected to historical figures like Rob Roy McGregor.
Yes.
So all of these items potentially have energy connected to them as well, but it's also built on top of an old watchtower.
Yes.
The castle walls continued round that area. So there's many reasons and many levels of potential energy in that particular spot. So we were interested to see which may come forward, and
it was
we're
crazy.
very glad Rick got the experience he got. I think that meant a lot to him.
Well, you've seen Mikey's video of that, right?
I've not seen the video yet. No, he sent me some videos, but I've not got that one.
I will send that to you.
Yeah,
because I started out seated, and I got up because of the sensations. So I'm looking over, and when that REM pod started going off, it looked like fireworks, like it was climbing. In my eye, it looked like it was climbing the antenna. Yep. The video doesn't look like that. But I've never seen a REM pod do this. And Mikey, in the video, Mikey even goes, my REM pod don't do that, bro. I mean, and he was right. But, I just thought, this is astounding. And Rick is like, oh, well, obviously. And I'm like, dude. I mean, he's my best friend. I can say that. Dude, you catch up,
Yeah, I think that in fairness, the journey back from that investigation was probably the quietest I've seen Rick post-investigation. I think he was still processing, what had happened during it.
And it only happened with that level of activity in that first session.
Yeah, yep.
It was like, okay, now
it's probably just I'm here, now you know.
Yeah.
But as we always say, no spirit's a performing monkey for our entertainment.
Not even a little bit.
You've had the confirmation and the the information that you need to know. So step back and let somebody else come forward if they want to.
Yeah. But it was just truly, and one woman who was in there with us, I can't remember which lady it was. She was so brilliant, but she kept asking for the password.
And yes.
And I'm like, he is showing you his password.
Yeah,
it's okay. I have not checked my recordings.
Yeah, there's a specific word that he told us that he would say to us.
Rick and I have one.
As you say, I mean, he was passionate about the paranormal himself, and more out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
He was just as interested in whether there is an afterlife as any of us are. So he always said that he'd give us a word.
Yes.
And if it's him coming back, he would say that word to us. So
I've not heard it yet.
No, I've not heard it yet. But that's not to say that I've not felt that he was there.
Yes.
and it's one of these situations where you've put so much time and passion into a property. You could understand that this energy would come back to have a wee check in to make sure things are all okay still.
Well, sure. And I thought it was so special that Stuart was, he came in there, and because I had said, well, if we're going to be guiding in the museum, I need to know what this stuff is.
Yeah.
And so he came in there and gave us a really great informative session so that we knew and we understood. But the model of the castle and stuff was so,
Yeah.
because they worked together on that.
Yes. Yep.
And as soon as he started explaining stuff, I was like, okay, if there's a place here, he worked here with his kid.
Yeah.
This is where I would be if I wanted to say hi to my friend and I wanted to let people know that I'm so proud of the things that happened here. Then, because I did not know that was part of the wall. I don't know if Rick knew that.
That's the area that when we hosted events prior to his passing, while he was still able to access the castle, rather than he lost mobility largely, so unfortunately couldn't get to the workshop like he used to. But when he was able, that's where he would always go. We'd run an investigation in his castle, and he'd be sitting in his workshop carving something or painting something. So he was always on hand if we wanted to pop in and ask him a question. But that was absolutely his happy place, I would say.
I love that, because I didn't know that. So it's a lot of things, a lot of nuances that go into why a spirit will interact with you. And all of those are at the top of the list. Family connection, pride of workmanship. My friends are here.
Yep.
I did this with my kid. This matters to me. And my favorite part about the museum is that's where the heated restrooms are. So that's that's not my favorite part, but it is a big perk.
Yes.
But it was so really cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, all his tools and everything are still there. They're all still hanging up.
Yeah.
Everything that he created, everything you see in that castle, the tools that were used to create it are all in that workroom, directly behind the museum.
Yes. Well, and I don't even know what went into him becoming the Laird of Balgony. I don't know what drew him to there, but it was a conscious choice.
He
put time and treasure into owning that castle.
They were living locally, but they something drew them to that castle. As he'd already restored other buildings. He'd restored an old watermill. But all these skills were self-taught. When he first came to Scotland, he basically just got on the train with a bag and went to, I think it was Perth he came to, because he thought it sounded like a nice place.
Yeah.
Spent his time in the military, and then started working on farms and just worked his way, learning as he went, and just continued going until, almost one of these stories that you start as a wee boy getting on a train and end up as Laird of a castle. It's a fascinating story.
It is fascinating,
and that's just as I say, everything's self-taught, and that to me is a pure sign of the passion, because you don't learn things to the level that either he or Stuart are capable of doing it if you're not passionate about it. So everything in that castle, there's genuine passion and love going into it. So it's a special place.
It is such a special place, and I can only imagine how much you miss that friendship.
Yeah, so massively. Yeah, yeah.
Even though he's still there, not being
Yeah,
able to
I mean, we
interact
used to
daily or
always, after an investigation, didn't matter what time of night it was, we would go in. Um, he was the type of person that he didn't abide by the norm, if you like.
right.
He didn't work Monday to Friday 9 to 5. He tended to work late afternoon into the wee hours of the morning, and then sleep later in the morning. So yeah, that I can relate to that because I've done that myself
Hmm.
for a very long time. I'm productive time is more in the evening rather than in the morning. But it meant that we could finish an investigation at 2, 2:30 in the morning, and he would be sitting waiting for us to go in and give him an update and tell him what had happened. And he was always fascinated by everything. And the amount of times you would say something and he knew immediately who or what it could be that you were talking about.
Okay.
It was brilliant, just because I say he had that depth of knowledge that he could connect things and give you good pointers for where to go. And other times, he would sit and read. You tell him something that happened, and because he had a massive collection of antique books, he would sit and go through them and find some information for you. Kelly does that as well, Stuart's wife. I mean, she's got the whole family tree for the castle. So, we can come up with a name that if she's not familiar with it, she'll research it for us and come back to say, oh, this was the connection to the castle. So we can start to make these links, which is, to me, is very important because, I mean,
Yes.
if you're speaking to Spirit and want Spirit to speak with you, at least you can do is know who they are and what their story is.
I agree with that. Yes.
I always think that, how bored must Spirit be from people going in? Is there anybody here? Are you a man? Are you a woman? So, we get asked, why do you keep going back to the same place? We say, well, we believe that we've built up this trust and the connection with the energy that's in that castle now. They know us. We know as much as we possibly can at this stage about them and who they are and what their story is and what their connection is. So it's that kind of bond, trust, whatever you want to call it, that we tend to get more activity from them because they know us. We, as much
Yes.
as we possibly can, know them.
I agree with that. I have people that laugh at me because I have places I like to go. And for a long time, through COVID, since COVID, um, I've had a lot of stuff happen that I couldn't investigate nearly as much as I would like to. And so now that I can get out and go and do things, it's so much, it's so special. And, you know, my local haunt decided that they were going to just be a museum now. They weren't going to allow paranormal
Yeah.
investigation. And I was just kind of like, well, but you might not have a museum if it hadn't been for the paranormal community. And the lady got offended because, you know, well, so we had a kind of tense discussion about that at one point.
Yeah, we've unfortunately got places here that are going similar.
Yeah.
Which, and again, I kind of get it, because I know of instances where teams have gone in that haven't been as respectful as they should be, to the building, the artifacts, or the staff, or all.
Right.
But I think it's a bit unfair to brand everyone with the same, because you've had a couple of bad experiences,
Yeah.
or because they've built a stage now that they're very successful as a historical museum or whatever themselves. So
Well, it's more of an
they
event
forget
center now.
they forget the step up the paranormal community gave them to actually say get where they were.
Yeah.
Plus, I think again, talking about respect. If I knew I ran or owned a museum where people for years have been investigating against spirit activity, who am I to then say nobody can speak to them anymore? What effect could that possibly have? Could these spirits get a bit frustrated at the fact that you're taking away the people that have been coming in? And take the situation with Balgony. We've been going there, as I say, for a lot of years. We've built that trust. If that suddenly got taken away, we'd be very upset. Would the spirits also be very upset about it? It's just one of these. We don't know the answers, but it may be that they're soon asking for teams to go back in because they're experiencing activity, and that activity may be prompted by the spirits expressing that they're not very happy about.
I think that's always a possibility, particularly with the place that I'm discussing, because my doctor has children, college age and younger, and he said, "Yeah, my kids know what you do, and they would like for you to take them ghost hunting."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, I don't hunt them." But okay,
it's a phrase we don't like particularly because we're not hunting anything.
Yeah. But anyway, so I took them to this place, and it was great. I took them in the downstairs area. There was motion all around us. There were taps, tugging on shirts, things like that. And so when we were leaving, the youngest son said, "Oh, something's wrong with my stomach." And he raised his shirt up. He had been scratched.
Oh, right.
I've never had that happen at that location. And so his dad, being a doctor, said, "Oh, yes, that is abraded skin. That's an abrasion." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So they went on, and I went back in, and I went downstairs, and I just had my recorder. And when I was down, I was going to make sure I didn't leave anything in there, but that was not the main reason I went downstairs. But I was like, who did that to him? I mean, why would you do that? He's a kid. And you waited until he walked out of the building. And so I heard motion up above me where there's a bunch of impellers and stuff. And so I just had my recorder, and I'm like, who is up there? Why are you walking around over me? Or something like that. And you heard this one voice say, "Bad customer." Okay. And then another voice said, "Jawohl." And then the third voice said, "Bad customer, eat poop," but the other word.
Yep.
And I was like, I didn't hear that until I got to my car and could play it back. And I'm like, that was 3 people.
Yeah.
There were 3 people walking around up there. If I'd have known I got an answer, I'd have said, "Which one of you scratched him and why?" So it was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And I always talk about that particular incident because it was three people talking besides me. There was no one in that building. It was a cold, rainy, nasty day. Nobody but us were crazy enough to be there, and we were inside. And that's the first time that I've gotten that kind of conversation level on an EVP. And it blew me away.
I mean, there's a few times now we've had similar that, it's almost like there's a conversation going on between, I think it was Niddry Street Vaults in Edinburgh. We captured audio. It was like children, and they were like urging each other, almost. It wasn't the exact words they were using, but it was almost like, "You go first, no, you go, no, you go," type conversation. You speak to them, no, you speak to them. And it was fascinating to hear because we often question, can they see us? Do they, can they hear us? Yes. What do they see? Do they see things as they were in their time, or are they seeing us there as we are? And I think that gave a very good indication that at least for some anyway, they see as we see places
Mhm.
today. They saw us in that building. They knew what we were doing, and they were urging each other. They were all a bit scared to go first, but they're all saying, "You go, no, you go, no, you go."
Yeah.
So it was a brilliant audio. I think Ryan's probably still got that, and we are going back there in February, so it may well get shared again fairly soon.
Well, I had so much fun because we got to go to the Writers Museum in
Yes, yeah,
Edinburgh, and that was, and I am an empath, but I don't generally feel their experiences. I just feel them, and I got whacked in the noggin,
right,
like
yeah,
the back of my head. And I actually put my hand up to see if there was blood because I was like, oh my God, what just hit me? But that was one of the most brilliantly interesting places that I've ever been. We had all the different levels, we got activity. And um, Jay Craig I call him Jay Craig because I'm like, I've always called you Jay Craig. I'm so sorry. Do you want me just to call you Craig? He's like, no, Jay Craig's fine. But it was so funny because I was just like, is there somebody that died from a head injury in here? Really? And he was like, well, I looked over at the young woman who was with us, and there had been someone.
yeah.
And,
Yeah. That's a
so,
location we're meant to be getting into, so hopefully we'll get in
well,
ourselves to investigate that one fairly soon, because it's certainly quite a
it was
building.
crazy. And this was in the upstairs, on the upstairs floor.
Yeah,
And there's 2 rooms up there. And the museum was just brilliant. I mean, as far as what's in it,
yeah.
it was just so cool. And that's
There's
another reason
so
that I
much in
love
Edinburgh
Edinburgh.
that's people go to the well-known
Hmm.
touristy sites, if you like, but there's so many other locations that are less well known,
Hmm.
that are just as interesting, if not more interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's a
Well,
fascinating city.
it is. Oh my gosh. I loved Perth as well, but Edinburgh is, I mean, because I, I could wander around there alone.
Yeah,
It's so, you know, I like it in the early morning. I like it in the rain. I like it late at night. It's just a brilliant city.
yeah,
And it was even Banshee Labyrinth, which I didn't get a lot of activity in, but it was so cool because of what it was.
yeah. I mean, we've had quite a lot of good activity in the Banshee, but we went in when it wasn't open.
Hmm.
So there was no customers in or anything. So it was a lot quieter then. But yeah, we actually got some incredible evidence in there. When we were doing it, the audio came out with some references to a church and water. Now, we couldn't quite connect at that point what this reference was, but we were live streaming it at the time, and somebody in the live stream said there's a church just down the road, but it's not a historical church, if you like. You wouldn't know looking at it from the outside it's a church.
Okay.
Um, it's only really when you read the signs you went, oh yeah, so this. Um, but when we looked at the historical maps, when the Banshee Labyrinth, the vaults, the Lidra Street vaults, etc., they're actually built into the bridge. People say they're underground. They're not actually underground as such. They're the vaults that support the bridge above it.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then they built houses either side of them, which enclosed it, so you feel like you're underground. But when they built that bridge, they actually realigned the road. And when we look at historical maps and overlay them onto the original street layout, there was a church with a well in the almost direct vicinity of where that pub now stands. So
Really?
we're getting connections about a church, and water. It was there. Historically, it was there. You don't notice it now because, I say, the street's been realigned. You don't realise that things are slightly different from they were historically. But when you look at the old maps,
Wow.
there they were. That's pretty good evidence for me.
I would say I would be happy with it.
Yep.
I mean,
then the next question, the frustration is, who is it we're speaking to and why?
yeah.
So we probably need to go back. Another investigation there's probably long overdue to find out. But I mean, we kind of got distracted in there by the energy from what we later found out is the pool room, the snooker room in the bar, which actually sits directly above the stone circle and the vaults below.
Yeah.
And that had some. I'm not necessarily saying I believe the story told, but it has energy. It has quite intense energy. So that room being directly above it, you could understand that that energy could come up through into that chamber too.
Wow. That is interesting. That is one of the things that I love about you and your writing is that you do find these things.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I think it's just important to understand why. I've always had this mind that I need to understand why. So if somebody tells me how something works, I need to know why. How does it work? And equally, if something's haunted, why?
Yeah.
And there's lots of questions. If some place has been haunted hundreds, thousands of years, what's the energy source? Something must be fueling this activity. So what is it? Are there ley lines under the area? Is there underground water? I've just asked the question on our pages. I'll be sharing onto the website in the next couple of days about anniversary ghosts.
Yes.
Because people report activity on certain anniversaries, but I can't remember the exact year, 1651, I think it was. We went to the Gregorian calendar. We lost 11 days at the start of September. So when we're looking at the calendar today, take the Battle of Culloden. That's probably the most famous anniversary ghost in Scotland. If you're looking at the anniversary of the battle today, on today's calendar, you're 11 days out. Because we jumped forward 11 days when we changed the calendar. So
okay,
if it's not the lunar, and I mean, again, lunar's not an exact science, but if it's not the lunar or 12-month anniversary, why does activity happen on a day that isn't actually the anniversary? Is it because so many people are focused, their energy, their thoughts, their remembrance on the battlefield, and that fuels activity to happen? That's my personal thought of what.
That's fascinating, though.
There's other theories that people look for activity on the anniversary, whereas they don't look for it on other dates. So that activity might always be there. It's just you don't notice it because you're not looking for it. So when you look for it on the anniversary and find it on the anniversary, you assume it's anniversary. Whereas it's not. It's just always there, but nobody looks for it. So there's so many theories, but yeah, I mean it's just a fascinating area for me that trying to find out the whys.
I do think that we can manifest
100%,
activity
yeah.
ourselves, but I also think that things that you were just discussing, they are like at Culloden. Okay. I wasn't at Culloden on any specific day, historically speaking, that I'm aware of. And I had a really intense experience. And Liam Shanley had told me,
yep,
there's a marker over here that people report stuff about. I'm not going to tell you about it, but if you get anything in this area, let me know. And I had gone a good bit past that when I had my experience. and I actually had to leave the battlefield
Right. Okay.
for a few minutes because it was really, really intense. And so, not because I was scared, but because there was pain involved and I needed to get away from the energy that was creating the pain. And it was just kind of a disconcerting thing. And when I got back, I mean, I was tender for a couple of days where I
Yeah.
had that. And so I was just like not really interested in talking about that anymore at that point in time. But it struck me as being so bizarre because I had walked past that marker,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I had gone down a fair amount, you know, not forever away from it, but past it when it started feeling that way. And I thought, well, this is the second time I've had something like that since I got here.
Yeah.
And I don't want any more of these. I'm done. Thank you. But it's really weird how they will manifest, because I'm an empath. I'm sometimes a medium. I mean, I'd really choose most of the time not to hear. And I definitely don't want to see a death state. And I put that out. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
see your death state. If you want
Mhm.
to communicate with me, you have to be you. And, you know, you can tell me what happened, but I don't want to see what
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
because I'm squeamish. I don't deal with stuff like that very well. And great big sissy girl. But it's like when I was at Culloden. No, Chorus. When I was at Chorus,
Yep.
I had, some experiences there that I don't share because they were a little weird. You know, I didn't know what it was because I didn't know their history at the time because I'm like going blind. But I did know some of the stuff that had happened, like the young woman that was buried under the rock and things like that in the
Yeah.
sea.
Lily Sadie.
Lilies, yes. That to me was bad enough, and that wasn't the worst.
No.
And so I just was kind of like, well, that's enough. I don't need more. I know. And because I was speaking with a young woman this week who is a witch here,
Yep.
and I had just found out that there was a museum and in Scotland. And so when I was talking with her, just our conversation, I was like, well, I just found out about this. She was like, that happened in Scotland? I was like, it wasn't just
Yeah.
here.
I
I
think
mean,
this
it
is
was
one
not
of the
just
things
here.
people don't realise because Salem is such a famous,
Yeah.
period of witch trials. It was actually Mary Queen of Scots brought it in Scotland. People put Queen Mary on a pedestal as one of these, the first feminist almost, if you like. But
Yes.
she introduced the Witchcraft Act, and some theories are that she introduced it to try to push particularly women to go back to the Catholic faith, because Scotland was going through the Protestant Reformation at the time. Queen Mary came back as a Catholic queen
Hmm.
from France to a Protestant country. There was great suspicion that she was going to try to convert the country back to a Catholic country. And there's some thoughts that the Witchcraft Act was to try to encourage women to go back to being more obedient, like a good little Catholic faith. Don't speak, don't be seen. Just do what you're
Yeah.
told, type thing. She in fairness never really saw the Witchcraft Act through. It was her son King James who absolutely kick-started the witch trials in Scotland. But it was his mum that brought all these things in.
Hmm.
That's way back to 1563, and there was a witch trial across in, I think it was Glasgow,
Hmm.
and the woman was deported to North America, and about a year later, that's when the Salem trial started. So again, there's a thought that her, stories about her travelled across to America with her, and that's
Yes.
what in turn fueled the Salem's trial.
Well, I just found it so odd that there are a lot of people who are self-proclaimed witches.
Yep.
And there are a lot of people who are natural witches. And I believe that there are, kitchen witches and gardening witches and
the important thing to emphasise for the witch trial period, especially in Scotland and across Europe, is none of them were witches. They were God-fearing Catholics and God-fearing Protestants by that point, because I say the country had gone through the Reformation. But none of them practiced any form of witchcraft. They were, a lot of them were midwives and things like that.
Well,
the belief was that a woman should just pray to God,
Yes.
for pain relief. So to administer any form of pain relief to them was witchcraft. None of them identified as a witch. They were scared of witches as anybody else was. Witches had pacts with the devil, etc. Whereas they went to church.
Yeah.
3, 4, however many times a week they were required to go. They were absolute God-fearing people who just ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, that's one of the things that I did not know a lot about that until I was there. And a lot of the people that were on that first tour I went through were self-proclaimed witches.
Yes, yep.
And it was just like, well, I almost said something ugly. I'm not going to do that. But something to do with consonants and stuff. But it was just one of those things that they were all about the witch hunts. And, I think that one of the reasons that stuff stuck so hard is that it's scary. If you stop to think that people can cast against you and do all these things, even though the men and other women that were making those statements knew that wasn't so. That to me is the tragedy. Because
anytime I'm talking about it to people, you've got to emphasize to people, because we can look back nowadays and think, how could people believe this?
Yeah.
But when you've got the church who held massive power and your king, King James wrote a book, Demonology, about how to identify and find and torture a witch. When you've got your king writing books about it, you believe it.
Yes.
When you're told your child's ill, or your child died, or your crop failed, or your horse died, or your boat sank, killing your husband, and it was a witch, and it was her across the road, you're looking for somebody to blame.
You're going for.
You don't have that knowledge. Most people couldn't even read.
Yeah.
So they believe anything that they were told. When you've got the lead authorities telling you, you couldn't Google it. So it was just a different time period.
Well,
and you've got to put yourself in that mindset to understand why it happened.
Well, something that I think it's just a human thing, because at different points in time, everybody has come up with their own reason to persecute someone else.
Yeah.
The witch trials and things of that nature, you had a populace that was so much more vulnerable than the people gunning for them, and there was no one to defend them. Because that
was quite an important thing about Queen Mary's Witchcraft Act. She went further. She followed England, introduced their Witchcraft Act first, and then she did the Scottish one. But she went further than the English did. She had an extra bit added that, roughly translated, would mean that to aid and abet or consult with somebody who was later found to be an accused witch, a convicted witch, you too were a witch.
Oh,
So
well,
you know,
that adds a different flavor.
you could see your loved one. You know, the amount of times it would, if you're doing a tour about the witch trials, there's always some bloke that will sit there and point at their wife when you start talking about it. Oh, take her, ha ha ha. But then when the reality hits that your loved one could be taken from you, imprisoned, tortured, and ultimately murdered, because it was state
Yeah.
murder,
It is.
and you couldn't speak up to defend her.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could do. You had to explain to your children why they couldn't go to their mum. And then at the end of it, if you could afford it, you got billed for it.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the town
That I did not
the
know.
town had to pay for it. There's numerous bills. Yeah, there's quite a famous one from Kirkcaldy, where the wording is on the pain. You had to pay for the pains of the executioner, because it was such an ordeal for him to have to execute somebody. What about the pains of the person
I would
that was
think most
getting
of those
executed?
guys were
Yeah,
getting off on it.
yeah. So you were paying for the wood, paying for the rope, paying for the barrels of tar, paying for their time in jail. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Without a doubt.
So you could understand why, when you're in a hopeless situation, the quicker you can confess and get over and done with, the less impact it has on your whole family. You stand to lose everything and anything that they ever owned. Yeah, it was just an impossible situation for people.
It is. And to think I loved Kirkcaldy so, because
Yeah,
I
I mean
do.
it everywhere happened,
I know.
absolutely everywhere in Scotland. Yeah, there was hardly a town that wasn't affected.
Was because I did not realize the Culross was so close to like Bonnie Bridge and places like that.
Yeah, they're
So
all
it's
just
not
further
far
up
from
on the
urban
river.
areas.
No, but
But
again, back then places were far smaller. Back then Edinburgh was only what you see now as the old town.
right.
Edinburgh's built it's either 5 or 7 hills. I can't remember exactly how many, but that's why they built all these bridges to interconnect it.
Mm-hmm.
So Edinburgh at the time would basically just be the castle on the main street, Princes Street,
Yes.
or the Royal Mile, down to it, Princes Street and things like that. Never existed in these times. Walled city.
Yeah.
As most towns at that time were walled, so you didn't leave or consult with anyone outside your town.
Yeah.
You had no idea what was going on outside. There's one trail from Curras, Helen Elliott. She actually managed to escape, but that it's a sign of how desperate she was. Her torturers, her jailers, left her bound in the steeple of the church, while they went to warm themselves at the fire and have a wee drink because they were tired from watching her. But she wasn't as tightly bound as they thought she was, so she managed to escape. But they were completely unaware of it until they heard her screams outside. She'd leapt from the tower because probably trying to kill herself, because killing herself was more favourable than what she faced. Unfortunately for her, she lived, and she broke. It would have been virtually every bone in her legs up to her hips, and the description is that she had a severe ruptured injury to her stomach. You can imagine landing feet first from that sort of height onto stone. But she was just bundled back into a cart and the next day taken up to the burning site to be executed. You would expect her jailers would possibly get into trouble for not doing their job. But the story came up that while they were distracted, the devil came to save her. And he flew with her out of the window of the tower. And she then looked at him and uttered the words, "Oh God, where are you taking me?" And at the words, "Oh God," the devil dropped her because he was terrible. He didn't like these words.
Wow.
And as a description, she leapt or travelled as far as the streets in Edinburgh. Now, somebody living in Curtis at that time would imagine Edinburgh would have massive wide streets. You know, it'd be a massive distance that she travelled. The reality is, I don't know if you ever went into places like Mary King's Close. You know, you could stand and touch the buildings on either side by stretching your arms out. You know, they're very narrow. But because people hadn't seen it, didn't know, you know, they could only let their imagination go on with what Edinburgh must look like. So for them, this accused witch had travelled a vast distance, whereas reality was she was literally outside the tower.
Insane. Isn't it? I would like to say that it's so unimaginable that people could be that unkind, but people in different cultures still are.
Yeah, I mean, it still does exist today.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult. It's existed throughout history.
I know.
You know, since the start of historical records. You know, there's, as you mentioned earlier, there's been one reason or another to persecute different people for whatever reasons. And yeah, I mean, it's on the paranormal side, it's quite a difficult one for me as a researcher, because what I've found, you know, we've investigated places connected to the witch trials. We tried to speak to the ministers, the jailers, things like that, because personally, I don't believe that the accused would be there. Why would you come back to that?
No,
place?
I don't think so either.
Whereas the ministers, the jailers, who spent a lot of time in these places, they may still linger. And you know, you can go in, you can berate them, you can, you know, ask them if they're disgusted at how they acted, etc. But as I mentioned earlier, you've got to go back to their time period. They were acting in good faith. They believed, truly believed what they were doing was correct. That, you know, these people had signed pacts with the devil, and they were out to kill their children, sink their boats, etc. So I personally have had much better results asking, rather than are you ashamed of what you did? The best results I had was I said, I'm a minister from a neighbouring town. I need help. Can you help me? We started getting answers. Yes, you know, things like that.
Really?
Thinking, you know, it's difficult because, you know, today looking back, you're disgusted at what happened. But to get a response from the spirit, you've got to think their time period, their belief system. You know, they don't know they were doing anything wrong still. So it's a difficult and curious one.
Yeah, that would make that investigation so difficult.
Yeah.
I really would not have come up with that. It's a great point. Thanks.
Yeah, it's just taking that backward step and thinking, wait a minute, I'm not getting anything from asking you if you know you're wrong. Maybe they don't know they're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, if they're fixed in that time period, they're not, you know, obviously you get the more intelligent spirits that, you know, are more aware of what's happening. As I mentioned earlier, the children in the Drew Street vaults, that were very aware of us being there and the equipment we had, etc. But equally, you've got other ones that potentially are still in their time zone, if you like. Yes, they may be aware of you asking questions. They may not even be able to see you. The amount of times we get called witch, you know, it's a very common thing, comes through in our audio. And initially we thought there must be a connection here to the witch trials, but we actually now think that we're getting called witches because of what we are doing. We're talking to the dead, we're using devices with flashing lights and things like that. So are we getting accused of being witches because of what we're doing?
It would be interesting to go back and go through the experiences where you were getting that and see if there was any activity happening around you.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to capture you.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
That would I imagine you've got a lot of evidence to go back through to look to see if you can.
We've got so much evidence
There's
still,
so much.
still to go through. It's quite unbelievable. And it's just growing and growing and growing. We are so busy at the moment, and yeah, next year's going to be the busiest year yet. This year's our busiest year yet, so we've got a mountain of evidence that we're still working through, and we keep adding to it.
Yes, I have that same problem, and it's just me going through it. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, for
Why the
me,
heck?
it's predominantly Ryan that does all the analysis side for the audio. Because I mean, that's his area of expertise.
Right.
I dig up the historical side, whereas Ryan does he does some historical as well. But he does all the audio analysis.
Well,
So
he's really good
it's
at
a
that.
lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Quite often if he gets a really good capture, I'll hit the books to see what I can find to try to connect it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a never-ending task.
well, that's why y'all are such a good team, though. I mean, everybody brings something to the table.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think if everyone had the same interest or the same area, it would become more competitive, if you like.
More competitive, and also, boring's not the right word, but
yeah,
it would
I
be
don't
like,
think you get the same results.
yeah,
If you're not
you'd have
exploring
the
every avenue.
one-trick pony kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet, do you know that I still get reached out to you by some of the people that investigated with us at Balgoni?
Right. Yeah.
And there's one woman had asked if I would investigate because they're coming to the States. If
Right.
I would
Okay.
come and investigate with them, and I'm like, oh please, yes please, I will investigate with you anywhere. But the people that follow you and come and do your events are just brilliant people.
Yeah,
They
we have what we call the premium members or subscribers
mhm,
club, and that they're fantastic. What we did years ago. I'd sat down and spoken to Ryan about I always use the example, and some people laugh at me for it. But if you're interested in art, you go to the art club. If you're interested in running, you go to the running club. If you're interested in the paranormal, what do?
you join Haunted Scotland.
We wanted to create a hub where people could come and speak to like-minded people, share experiences, share evidence, etc., and learn, because none of us growing up had any opportunities. We had to learn it ourselves. Until such time as you get to a stage where you're confident enough to join a team. If you can find a team to join, first of all. There's no opportunities handed to you. So we wanted to create opportunities for people, whether they're very experienced investigators or somebody that just got general interest that would like to know more. I always say that I can learn as much from somebody that's just started as somebody that's done it for
New
30, 40
ideas.
years. Yeah, exactly. They might just say something, just throw a random comment, and you think, oh, wait a minute. And you can start making connections with things that you've questioned yourself, but they've given you a wee comment, a wee idea, and you think, oh, right, okay, and that, you start to make sense of things. So,
yes.
it was never set up that we're going to teach people how to be paranormal researchers, because, we do it our way. It's not to say that's the right way or the best way. Other people do it differently and get good results as well. It's people have got to learn their own way.
Yes.
That includes equipment, what equipment works. You try it, see what works best for you. So yeah, I mean, we've got this really, really loyal following that we're really grateful for. It's more like a community, a family. We quite
It
often
is a
refer to them as
community.
Scottish Paranormal Family, because that's what it feels like. The people help each other with travelling. Let them stay at their house, go out for meals with them. We've seen people that are event goers came to us as just event goers and now running their own teams. It's great to see, because we couldn't do it without their support either. They're really good at boosting us and supporting us with events and things like that. and they share all their evidence and things like that with us as well, which is so valuable that, if we're at an event and they experience something or capture something, that information is shared with us. We've never ever believed in just hosting an event and then, that's it until the next one.
Yeah.
Get the conversation going afterwards, who experienced what happened, builds the story, builds the evidence for that location for the next time you go back. So yeah, it's great to have so many people there. I say we all learn from each other. We are not there as the ones doing all the teaching. They teach us as well.
Well, and they're so enthusiastic.
Yes.
One of the things that I thought was probably one of my favorite things that's ever happened to me in Scotland, and that's saying something, was before Balgony, before the Balgony investigation, someone took us into their home,
Yes.
right, for
Yes.
the
Daniel.
barbecue.
Yeah.
And what a home.
Yeah.
That was so
The
cool.
old church.
With a churchyard cemetery.
Yep. Yes.
Where Rick found a relative.
Yes. Yep.
And, I'm just, Rick finds relatives everywhere. But apparently the McCollums were, a randy bunch. But it's so funny because I don't even know how many people were there. And these people had this beautifully renovated church for their home. They had all the things. There were so many people. There was so much food. There was so much fantastic conversation. There was so much enthusiasm for going to Balgony. They were so nice to us. And, I'm just like, oh, this is so much fun and so special.
Yeah,
And
it's something that's happened a few times. We're fortunate to get into that property because of what it is. Daniel owns it, and it's only fairly recently they'd moved there.
Well, they did a brilliant job, by the way.
And they've experienced some activity in it, so they're quite keen to see what people thought. Plus, to share it. They're proud of their home, so let's all gather and share it.
Yeah.
I mean that's what we love about it, whether it's people inviting you into your home or meeting you at a restaurant for a meal before the investigation. There's always this buzz, and whenever anybody new joins, they tend to get invited out as well. There's everyone wants to welcome everyone in. It's just a great community we've got, fortunately.
Well, your subscriber group is one of my favorite places to look and just read. I don't comment in there a lot because I'm like, I'm not really there. So, I'm mainly learning about different places that I want to ask you to take us to next time and stuff. But, the enthusiasm for, not going to lie, it's almost like in your face to the people that took these people out, right? We are here and we're doing this.
Yeah.
And, because there's a lot of people who accept the title witch. It's almost like pushing back against what happened in the past.
Yes.
It's just like, so no, there's too many of us now. You can't do this. We are who we are, and we're going to do what we do.
Yeah, we always make sure the community is as inclusive as it can possibly be. There's always going to be people that have differences of opinions, but we always say that that's fine as long as you're respectful with each other. How boring would
everybody
be if we all had the same thoughts? We'd all have the same conversation because we'd all agree with each other. It'd just be such a boring world. So yeah.
Right. But
different opinion means we can get decent conversations going as long as people are respectful with each other.
Well, respectful is the key.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're the same. I openly admit I've changed my opinions on things so many times because I might have had a strong opinion at one point based on experience, what I'd read, what I'd found out, and then something happens which challenges it, or somebody says something that challenges. Think, well, wait a minute, actually, You know, any good researcher's got to be willing to challenge themselves as much as anybody else and be willing to change their thoughts.
Well, if you don't
None of us
grow,
know the answers. Yeah, exactly. You've got to grow. And we don't
yeah.
know the answers, so you know
Well,
we've
neither
got
do
to learn
doctors. That's
and
why it's
grow.
called practicing medicine.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there's nothing really in this world that's an absolute. And especially when you're dealing with something that is so, um, so intangible. The paranormal is by its nature intangible.
yeah,
And so when we get something, if one of us gets a piece of evidence that truly speaks to us, then we need to share that so that people will go, oh, well, so you're not just standing there in your, you know, back office listening with headphones going, oh my God,
yeah,
this is just the best piece of evidence that anybody ever got. And then you let somebody else hear it and they said, well, I really think this might have been a cell phone, or like I have cell towers near me.
yeah, yeah,
And I've actually had other people's conversations in shows before because I really think because of the cell towers. And so I don't generally review evidence in this room. I go downstairs
yeah,
because I'm underground. And I feel like there's not much that's going to interfere with that.
yeah,
But it's we have to share so that we will understand that either, well, heck yeah, that's a great catch, or, you know, I feel like maybe this was that.
yeah.
And while you're really good at what you do, I think maybe this one's that. And
Yeah, well, we will always share, but we only share evidence that we think is good enough to be shared.
hmm,
The amount of stuff that doesn't get shared,
yeah,
it's incredible. And when it gets shared, we will offer our opinion on what we think. If it's an audio, what it says. If it's an
yeah,
image, what we think it is. Um, but we are open to other people's interpretations. If they think they hear something different or see something different, by all means share what you hear. We all have different ears. Generally, if it's an audio, we need to be pretty sure of what it is. Well, Ryan does, because as I say, he does it all. Very fortunate to have him doing it. But it's open that if somebody else wants to offer their opinion, we're not telling you that it's definitely this, definitely that. Listen
no,
to
you
it
don't do that.
and come up with your own conclusion. Equally, we're not saying it's 100% paranormal because come to your own conclusion on it. We can't explain it, and that's as far as we're going to go.
Yeah, that's a pretty good trip. I mean, it really is because that's, I know that I gush on about your group a lot when I'm talking to people about the people I admire in the paranormal. I do. But, you know, y'all are my first experience with a team. I mean, because I've done y'all before the shows, you know, prior to, becoming, Ryan of the telly.
Yeah,
That I did do that to him. I did that to him. It was fun. But it was it was just you guys, you know, going out and doing what you do and sharing on Facebook, and then catching people's eye because you do have good catches. And it's just I like that you don't necessarily call yourselves ghost hunters
yeah. I mean,
because
we always say we're
nobody wants to be
researchers.
hunted.
No,
I don't want to be hunted, you know. Um, and I think the level of respect that you bring to the field is why you've gained so much respect in the field.
thank you. But
Well,
yeah, I mean, we do try to. We're not here to judge anybody. People use different methods. People use different methods. That's absolutely fine. We we would never ever tell somebody that something doesn't work. If we're not sure
right.
ourselves, we understand how does it work. and then trial it. As I said earlier, the understanding is the most important thing. I did that when Echovox, as it was, first came out as a app.
Mm-hmm.
Me, it was a phone app. Come on, radio waves, telephone, all the rest of it. And I would ask numerous people, how does it work? Nobody could tell me. People were telling me, oh, it was designed to do something else, but accidentally started picking up ghosts. I think that's the story of the Frank's box. That's not this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was speaking to Ryan about it that he could explain how it works. And right, okay, now I'm getting someplace. Let's trial it. Incredible, absolutely incredible evidence through it, and it drove us to then have our own app built.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only a case we know how it works. We designed it. We know what the audio is. It's got no full words in it. It's only got bit sounds in it. Everything's reversed. People say, oh, GPS and things like that. I wish we were clever enough to put GPS trackers in it that would know where we are and Google it and come up with certain historical information. It's not that complicated. It's quite a basic app, to be honest. But when you ask, when you stand in a historic castle and you ask for the name of the castle and you get the name of the castle, that's pretty good evidence as far as I'm concerned. But it's just this understanding, and that's not to say everyone should use apps or everyone should use voice boxes or everyone should use K2s. Find what works for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because different things are for different people.
Yeah, your personal energy connecting to a device, which is energy as well. That's where the connection is. Find what works. Don't discount based on what somebody else says. Trial it. Try it yourself. Understand it. Try it. If it works for you, good. Use it. If it doesn't work for you, find something else. But don't tell other people that it doesn't work because it didn't work for you.
Right.
It's got to be this open-minded. I always say, or more recently been saying to people, how daft would you feel if you categorically said, for example, the PSB7 doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then in 6 months' time, science accepts a capture through the PSB7 as conclusive proof of the paranormal. Do you not feel a bit silly because you've gone out there and said categorically it doesn't work?
Yeah.
You're quite correct to go out and say it doesn't work for me. I've not had very many good captures for it. But don't discount anything because none of us actually know when this groundbreaking, conclusive proof is going to come or how it's going to come.
Well, so my groundbreaking, conclusive proof comes with those pendulums that you gave me. But I do use tools too.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a gentleman on with me who did a show about pendulums. And he told me how to recognize ones that work. And I'm an amethyst girl. And one of the ones from your shop was an amethyst. And the other one, I don't remember what it is. It's way over there. But if I have lost something, and I have house spirits that are goofy and they do strange things sometimes with my stuff. But I can take that amethyst pendulum and say, I need you to show me where this is because it's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it is almost like clockwork. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I have 2 other pendulums that are good, but they're not that good.
Yeah.
So you can't, like you said, you can't discount if you're not doing it or if it's just something that doesn't work for you.
Particular stone crystal, the amethyst, that's what your energy has that connection with.
Yeah.
So that's what works best for you. Somebody else may try it and it doesn't work so well for them, but one of the ones that don't work so well for you might work better for them. It's all about this connection.
Well, relevant to that, do you know where Rake Castle is?
Yes, yep. I've been there a couple of times.
We went there, and one of the girls was using dowsing rods.
Yes. Yep.
I love dowsing rods. So I
But people
watched for a
discount them.
while and it started getting a little slower. And I said, "Can I do that?" And she was like, "Yeah." And she handed them to me. And so I was getting responses and I was, you know, enjoying myself with that because that's, to me, that's effective.
Mhm.
And do you know that I got burned on my hand
Oh
by
no, I
those
didn't know
dowsing
that.
rods?
Yep.
And I was just like, "Oh my gosh." And Mikey took a picture of it because I was like, this is so weird. The only other time I've been burned was by red jade. And it was a man's stone that he was really excited about and he handed it to me so that, you know, he said, "Feel
Yep.
this." And so I closed my hand on it. And when I opened my hands up, I had a burn there too. And I was like, well, never jade,
Yeah.
never red jade. And now I was just like, I'm never using Bonnie's, you know, dowsing rods again.
But I could throw something else at you.
What's that?
From that, Rate Castle is haunted by the handless woman. So was she put the impression on your hand through the dowsing rod?
I didn't know
Of,
that.
yeah, it's a handless woman that haunts the castle. She it was connected to clans, disagreements between clans, and the daughter of the owner of Laird of Rate Castle was in love with a man from the opposite clan, and I can't remember the exact story, but there was a battle. They fought at the castle, and she tried to escape. And as she tried to escape, she went out the window. She was holding onto the windowsill, and the story is that he sliced her hands off, so she fell to her death.
I did know that story,
So
but I had not realized it was.
I would
Wow.
just ask the question: is it the dowsing rods, or is it the spirit of this handless woman putting that impression, showing you where her injury that ultimately led to her death
Oh my
was?
gosh.
So again, I would just try the dowsing rod someplace else and see what happens. You know,
Interesting. Well, I ordered
if it
a
happens
set
again,
just
you know
like
it's definitely
those.
the rods.
Yeah.
But you know, if it doesn't happen again, it's possibly spirit impression from that castle itself.
Well,
I mean,
I
dowsing rods
actually
are one of
recently
these.
ordered them.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say I don't use them that much, but it's one of these areas that people discount, people don't believe, but our water board still uses them to find leaks.
Yep.
I was watching a television show the other night about crystal hunters in
Hmm.
Australia. They're using the dowsing rods to find the crystals, so there's something in them.
I do believe them. I didn't used to because they're so easy to manipulate.
Yeah, I think
Right?
that's the problem. Anything like that that's easy to manipulate, people unfortunately do manipulate, and that
Yeah.
then gives anyone that doesn't want to believe in it all the evidence they need to say they don't
Yeah.
work.
I've used them a couple of times on true investigations, like home investigations and stuff where people needed real answers. And I like them better than just about any other piece of equipment for stuff like that.
Yep.
Because they're an immediate, they're visual. Um, you know, I like using a voice recorder that's attached to a speaker. And I just like things that people can see immediately or hear immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
And with the SB7, there's so much noise that it's very individual.
Yeah,
People will
I
hear
mean,
what they
we
want to
get
hear.
that at events when we use things like that. Some people will hear it, other people don't hear it. It's
Or
not
they
until
hear
you then
different
go away.
things.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not until you go away and do the analysis and clean out all that background noise that you really capture. But equally, that background noise is necessary to get the captures. So it's a no-win situation. I know some people, there's a setting on the PSP7 to remove the background noise, but
Yeah.
anytime I've tried that, I've never had really anything coming through it. It needs that background noise to create
It
sound
does.
waves that the spirit can then remanipulate into whatever they want to say.
Well, I have the Scottish Paranormal app. I like it. I've tried Echovox. I have a very difficult time with my settings on that.
Yeah.
So I'm not really
Yeah,
enthused.
Echovox is definitely a bit more complicated. As I say, everyone's pretty
It is.
straightforward.
What I should have
It's-
done is had, one of you guys or Ryan, set it for me while I was there, but I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
think of that. But it's I like tools.
yeah.
I do.
Again, though, with our app, we'll happily show you the settings we use.
Yeah.
That's not to say they're the best settings for you as an individual.
Well,
For your hearing, there may be a slightly different setting that lets you hear better. So, though we're always happy to share the settings we use, we always encourage people to try different settings, find what works
well,
best for you.
we will talk about that getting me set where I trust y'all and I tend to pick up stuff when y'all do.
Yep.
So I'll try your settings, and if they don't work, I'll play with it some more.
Yep.
But I'm a big believer in the good use of tools. So I actually, my thermal imager, I don't have like a big fancy one. I have a literal HVAC tool
Yep.
that does video and screenshots, because I want something that I know works for other applications, and maybe it'll work for mine too.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
We've got it's Seek Thermal that we use.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean they're quite interesting. But again, you've got to understand how they work. The amount of times that I see images getting shared that that's just your heat source reflecting off something else, or
Yeah.
you've had your hand. Whenever we use the thermal imagers at public events, I'll always put my hand down someplace, for a couple of minutes, then take it off, and then show people how long that heat source stays in the shape of a handprint.
Mm-hmm. I set mine for cold.
Right. Yeah.
I look for cold.
Yeah. I mean, we look ours are set for both.
Yeah.
So we can try to discount anything, because a lot of time we use the thermal imagers if we're in the woods or something like that. We'll use the thermal imager to find out is there something there.
Yes.
And it won't be the first time we've heard stuff. We've thought something's happening. There's a cat in the tree.
Yes. I know, right?
But it's important to us that we can exclude that.
Lots
because
of
we don't want
squirrels,
any false positives. We don't want to present something unless we've actually properly looked into it to see if there's a natural cause for it. So the air thermal images are mostly used to exclude things rather than find anything.
Yes, that's the best. That's the best. We're out of time, my friend.
That was quite quick. It didn't feel like
I know, even with me choking to death and stuff. So tell people real quick where they can find you. I've got your G Stewart. I can't read my own hand. Horror.
Yeah, that's an old website.
Well, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, hauntedexplorer.co.uk and scottishwitches.co.uk are my two websites. Both drastically need updated, and
mine too. Don't feel bad.
Back into use. They've not been used for a long time, so we've just been too busy. And across social media, you'll get Haunted Explorer, obviously, for myself. Scottish Paranormal is the team, and Haunted Scotland Investigates is the overall group. And we also have Ryan, who works with us. You'll get him on Ryan O'Neill Official, and Lee Dunn, who we work with a lot.
Brilliant.
Again, just look up his name. And Louise, you probably found Louise as well. She's Angel Cards. She does a lot of spiritual stuff on that as well. And we have recently launched a new Scottish Paranormal website, which we are encouraging people, because we're trying to build up what we aim to be the most inclusive database of haunted locations in Scotland. So that's just simply scottish-paranormal.co.uk. We share blog posts on there on a regular basis, just telling historical stories, ghost stories, with history behind it. We share analysis, we share events and things like that on there. But I say we are now in the process of building a huge database, which is going to be a massive amount of work. But we're daft and we do things like that. So yeah, that anyone going to the Scottish Paranormal website, or the portal as we call it,
Yes.
you can sign up for free membership, which just means that you will get updated whenever anything gets posted in there. So you can go on and check. You don't have to keep checking the website. You'll get notified when something new goes on. So yeah, that's quite a task, that one, but we're quite excited about it as well.
Well, I'm quite excited about it too, because I'm so proud of the work that y'all do. I'm so proud that you're my friends.
Oh,
And
likewise, we love having you coming over.
well, I
Rick's
just
obviously
think
been
you
coming
guys
over for a lot of years to see us, and we love it when he comes over, and we love it when he brings other people that become friends as well.
Yes.
So it's great. We all learn from each other.
I think so too, and I'm so glad to get those opportunities. So, for everyone listening, thank you so much, because this has been my Color Kool-Aid. This is my friend. This is one of the best investigators I know. He's a brilliant author, and he's just a good human. So, Greg,
And I'll
thank
say thank you
you.
to everyone as well. And thank you very much for having me. Anytime, because I think we've only really scratched the surface, to be honest.
We have. We're going to have to do this
But
again.
anytime that you're at a loose end and need somebody on, just give me a shout.
I will do that. So, good night, everyone.
Night.